All right, we do have a few announcements before we get going. This is our last Discovering Buddhism class until November 6th. So Discovering Buddhism will be on break through September and October, but have no fear. There's still lots and lots to do. Speaking of which, this Saturday is our animal blessing, which is going to take place here in the Kadampa. So if you have a dog can come on a leash, and cats and other animals can come in cages or in carriers. So that's very exciting. That's Saturday at 10, and Geshe Sangpo will be leading that. And then on Sunday, we have a special celebration to basically celebrate our two resident monks, Geshe Gelik and Geshe Sangpo. So there'll be some yummy treats and things like that. So that's going to be, and a surprise. And so that's going to be on Sunday. So we're very excited about that. And lots to come this fall and winter. So to start with, in September, we've got Gendon Handrick coming. He's going to be teaching on a variety of topics, including conscious aging, faith in Buddhism, the Lama Tsongkhapa's middle way. I think it's called like something about dependent arising. So that'll be really good because we've been talking a lot about that lately here. And also Buddhist mind science is coming back. So that's going to be on Saturdays in October and November. All of this is already on the calendar. So if you're not sure about it, just go to the website, kadampa-center.org. Top right corner is my favorite spot where it's the calendar view. And you can check out things happening from now until the end of the year. And after in addition to, I should say, Buddhist mind science, we have Meditation 101, which is an introductory level class coming. Also in October, that's a 5-week session, and it's a great way to either begin a meditation practice or kind of go back and revisit the foundations of Buddhist meditation practices. And then after that, another 5 weeks of another introductory course called Buddhism in a Nutshell. And then, of course, that brings us to November when our next Discovering Buddhism course starts. And that's going to be all about karma, and Don Brown will be teaching that. He's the founder of Kadampa Center. And then all the usual things are going to still be happening as well. So we'll have Wednesday Lam Rim class with Geshe-la through the end of October. Then he'll be on a break for November and December. And Tara practices on the third Saturday of the month. We won't be doing circumambulation because Geshe Sangpo will be traveling to India. First Saturday meditation is another great one. And then the weekday meditation that happens Monday through Friday. And then, of course, our Sunday Dharma. So, and before that, there's Sunday morning meditation, which is part guided, part silent meditation. So there's lots and lots going on. I do want to express a huge thank you to Steep. This has been an awesome class, and I just enjoy it every single time and really love your approach to teaching. So thank you, thank you. If whether you're here in the Gampa or online joining us, remember all of the things that we offer here at Kadampa Center are free. So if you have any wherewithal to help support the teachings here at our center, we do take cash here at the center, checks you can mail in or drop off here, and then there's online as well. So again, if you go to our website, that top right-hand corner, right next to the calendar page is, or the calendar button is the donations page. So you can do that online as well. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'll just add on to the donation pitch here, which is a lot of times when we first find Buddhism, where at least I was like, oh no, well I find it next life. So if we want to find it next life, we have to make sure it survives. So that's a good self-interest reason to contribute to the preservation of the teaching, so that you will find it again. I think Jeffrey Hopkins, who's translated many texts, that says if he wants to read the Dharma in the next life, he has to translate it in this life. So there's that. Thank you all. Let's start by just setting our intention for this last class. Think about why you signed up for this in the first place. Has your intention kind of grown or expanded over time or deepened? Here's a chance to really drill down a little bit into it more. So even if you were listening in or coming here out of just curiosity, it was a curiosity to expand something. Your peace of mind, your wisdom. And never underestimate the value of that intention and the ripple effects it has when you achieve those goals. And then as much as you can expand your intention and your motivation to the highest level, that you will be able to reach enlightenment for the sake of all beings, including yourself. And that the effort you're making today, the meditations, the thinking, the talking, these are all contributing factors to that goal. If we're placing tiny grains of sand into a barrel, eventually there's a tipping point when you're at the top and spilling over. So everything matters. So I'm going to ask Linda to read the four immeasurables, and you can listen and try to use them to increase your motivation. You can recite them, whichever you prefer.
If you're here in the Kadampa and want to use the gold prayer book, it's on page 34. May all sentient beings have happiness in the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends or hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies.
And staying in your meditative pose, check your posture to make sure that your back is straight. Again, arms out a little away from your body so your breath is deep. Feet flat on the floor, or if you're seated, just try to make sure that your hips a little bit higher than your legs. It helps straighten your spine. Tuck your chin a little bit so that your head is contributing to that straight spine. Your eyes a little opened, bring in some light. Your tongue at the back of your teeth. Relax your jaw and become aware of your breathing. Put all of your awareness on your breath. It's an ocean of energy. You're inhaling and exhaling. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's Donna's calling me. Now imagine yourself sitting in front of yourself. So a part of you is sitting in front of you, and you're going to inhale all of your worry, your doubt, your stress, whatever it is that you need to release. Imagine that you're inhaling it as though dark clouds of smoke are coming out. You're inhaling it. When you inhale, all of that smoke is breaking through any blocks in your system. And then you're exhaling pure, clear light to yourself. So again, you're inhaling your own negativities, your own obstacles in the form of thick smoke. And you let that smoke break through any of your own obstacles, problems, clearing all your channels as you exhale perfectly clear, crystal energy, wisdom to yourself. Some people find it easier to do several inhales as they're gathering the smoke. Other people do it in one inhale, exhale. Just experiment until it feels right for you. Any questions about that experience? So for those of you who don't know, that's Tonglen. And if you read about Tonglen, it's often doing this for others, but it's really helpful to start with yourself. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, so Linda, do you have queued up that? Okay. So we are going to do some more of a meditation on the death dissolution states. Any questions left over from last week about it? Because we're going to watch a video first, and just wanted to review a couple things. Yeah.
In the parts where we go through the colors, is that us becoming more aware of the drops, the red and the white drops? Can you hear me? Oh, is that my head? Oh.
Those appearances, the sky-like appearances, white, red. Yeah, that's the different drops are moving through the channels. You don't have to. I mean, that's a good reason to know what's going on in the body, but I don't know if you're going to be aware. Okay. You're going to have this this vision, this experience of this sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what the colors are coming from.
Yeah.
And then when they leave the body, that's when we go to the black.
I don't know if they've actually left the body yet. I'll try to find that exactly. Okay. But they're moving through different channels. So that's why there's the white appearance, then the red appearance. Then I believe when they meet, then there's the dark sky and then the fainting. And that's when you've moved past subtle consciousness. And now when the clear light arises, that's most subtle consciousness.
Okay. That's
okay.
Good. Thank you.
And I'm glad you asked that, because it's, I think somebody was asking me last week, like, what is all of this? Where do these things go? That's why it's called death dissolution. Like right now, if I went blind I had some illness and went blind, and I still had my eyes, I still have my eye, what they call eye sense organ, but it's no longer functioning in that way anymore. So that's what's happening. Each of our sense organs has these receptors that take in different external stimuli. And when we're dying, those are dissolving, their functions are dissolving. And then the very final states that when I had listed before, all the aggregates and the elements, and there's these wisdoms, and all of these things are dissolving in these different stages. And that's why these different appearances arise or functions disappear, like warmth withdraws. We can no longer hear. That's because all of these different things that we've been talking about are dissolving in these different orders. Now, if I died suddenly, that would happen so quickly that I wouldn't really be necessarily aware of those different states. Not like that. Not like what we're meditating on. All right, so we're going to do the meditation in a minute, but I just wanted to. There were a couple of things I just wanted to. Yeah, so there was this quote, I can't remember which teaching this was from, maybe something Geshe told me, but I wrote it word for word because it helped me. Whatever happens as I face death and move through the death process to the next life, I will always only ever think of benefiting others. So that thought helps us as we enter into the death process. Because I remember telling Geshe I was scared when I read about the Bardo state. He was like, you can still practice bodhicitta. You can still have this intention. So the only way that you will is if you're doing it in life. So if we're using our moments now to think, okay, whatever happens, I will try my best to use it for the highest intention, to use it as best to benefit others. And that's where, we talk about the two wings, because we all know people who need more wisdom because their compassion is so heavy this way, they're not doing things wisely, than people who are so smart, like the Unabomber, but they're not using any of the compassion wings. So we're constantly having to figure out which we need a little bit more of. Which do we need to develop more in each situation? It's not easy. It's not easy. But even then, there's usually something at least we can think. At least we can generate a good wish for somebody, even if we can't do what we would like to be able to do to help. And so then with familiarity, there's nothing that gets, well, let's say it in the positive. With familiarity, everything gets easier. So that's why we do the death dissolution meditation, so that it becomes familiar to us and we're not frightened, and we can then concentrate positively as we're entering into that death process. And then, yeah, there's so many, it's like taking off different layers, right? Because we're walking around with all these layers. We need all these layers in order to function and to do things, and it's a very important vessel that we have, this life. And then in the dying process, these different layers are shed until there's this primordial consciousness that we can become aware of and try to align with as much as possible. In the meantime, I remember asking, I don't know if it was Geshe or somebody else, like, I think Venerable Rabina talks about the mind as kind of like a garden, right? And we are here to weed, we can weed that garden. And I remember thinking, like, well, why is it that, like, this precious little plant I have, or this lovely little tomato plant, it needs so much extra care, and the weeds don't need anything. They can survive all the drought. They're sending their shoots under the sidewalk. I cannot pull them out to save my life. They're just sending up shoots all over the place. They don't need anything. Well, that's more like, I'm thinking, like, that's more like our negative mind. They don't need nurturing. They're just ready to go. Always ready, and digging their roots under places. So even when we think we've pulled out that angry thought today, it's left a little seed over here, and here it comes out again. That's why we have to be really endless gardeners. We have to persevere. That it's the thoughts that we want that are going to actually bear fruit that need all this extra care and attention constantly. In New Orleans, where I grew up, we're always trimming. Here, everybody loves wisteria. There, it's like a nightmare. It just takes over everything. And in like half a day, you can see it has grown. And it will pull down, like my mom had some growing, and it just pulled down her whole little thing over her porch. And so, we had to get out there and pull it down. And within like half an hour, you could see it had grown. It was unbelievable. So like that, we just have to we can't give up, and find what nurtures that plant that we're trying to grow. For each of us, it's going to be something different. Somebody else may be way more patient than I am, or way more whatever. So we know ourselves. What is it plant we're trying to nurture today, or this week, or this life, and not be so hard on ourselves. But we also have to find our ways to pace ourselves and congratulate ourselves, because it is pretty much a miracle that we have what we have. All the Buddhas and all the teachings and all that stuff isn't going to garden for us. It's not. We are the ones who have got to pick that up and do this and put down some mulch. We're the only ones who can do that. So even though all those other things exist, it's only us getting our hands dirty that's going to make that garden be any different. The fact that we even have the garden this tame at this moment is a miracle. So that's what we rejoice in, and then try to use what we have to kind of dig up a little bit more. I know I have this quote from His Holiness near my bed in the morning, so that I try to remember to think it when I wake up, and it's something to the effect of, let me use, I wish I could remember exactly, but may I be able to use this day to try to control my anger as much as I possibly can, and to even think of benefiting people as much as I can today. The one thing Geshe told me that really helped me, he said, but you have to make sure that that also includes you. So you can't give away every single thing, and thinking that you're helping others if you haven't also helped yourself, because now the garden is just a mess. Okay, so let's watch. We're going to start at page like minute 5:30, but let me explain that this is a longer video. We don't have time to watch today, but you can find it on YouTube. And we're going to come into the middle where or the early parts, where it's this older monk and this young boy monk who are going to this town in Tibet to help recite these special prayers for this man who has recently died. And so you're going to hear some of what they're saying. The boy asks all these questions, and they travel there, and then you're going to see some of the death dissolution process in this animation. So Leonard Cohen is narrating it, and I think we're going to watch like 10 to 12 minutes. I'll let you know when it's.
So Dawn, on Zoom, again, can you, once I put it in the mode to watch the video, I can't see chat or anything. So can you just like unmute and say something if you can't hear it or something is not working right?
Sure, no problem. And I'll send you a message privately in the chat as well.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
One day, while Tupten Sering is preparing the morning meal, his teacher tells him, "A man in the next village is dying. We will leave here early tomorrow so that we can help him. We will be going there every day for the next 7 weeks. We will read the Bardo Total to him." Then he sends Tupten to the monastery library to find the Bardo Total. Known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this text is a guide for those who are dying and is used in all Buddhist countries of the Himalayas. It was written in the 8th century by Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to this region, and it has been an integral part of people's lives here ever since. The Bardo Total will be read aloud to the dead person for 49 days, which is the usual length of time between death and rebirth. This is the first time that Tupten has been asked to assist his teacher. What happens when we die? At death, we lose everything we thought was real. Unless we can let go of all the things we cherished in our life, we are terrified. If we cannot stop struggling to hold on to our old life, all our fear and yearning will drag us into yet another painful reality. But where does the consciousness actually go? We are always wandering.
I'm just going to give it a minute to buffer.
Through transitional states called bardos.
The
name of this text means the great liberation through hearing in the bardo, and it describes the transitions from death to life. As we read the text aloud to guide the dying man, what happens will become clear to you. The Sonams live at the edge of a nearby village. The family is very religious, and Grandfather Sonam is often at the temple. But it is his second son, Sering Sonam, who is dying. He has been somehow stricken while traveling on business, in spite of the fact that he is only 42. will be hard for him to let go of his attachment to this world. To leave his wife and his old father must be very difficult, and this can cause him to wander in the painful uncertainty of the bardo for all of the 49 days after his death.
작살 주면 걔 남다가 우겨면
Thank you for coming to us. Are you well, old man? I'm all right. But my son... The Lama will do all he can for the dying man and also for his family, who themselves must be grief-stricken at the suddenness with which they face the loss of beloved son, husband, and kinsman. The bardo of dying lasts from the beginning of the body's physical collapse until the body and consciousness separate. While we are living, the elements of earth, water, fire, and air together support and condition our consciousness and our perceptions. Death occurs when this is no longer the case. Now, without the screens and filters of daily life, at this time, mind itself can be seen directly. We will now begin to read the Bardo Total. Don't cry, it doesn't help, it just confuses the dying man. The most important thing now is to help Tsereng Sonam's mind be untroubled and clear. First, move him onto his right side. Then, as in this statue, he will be lying in the same way the Buddha did at his own death. In this position, it will be easier for his life force to become peaceful. According to the Book of the Dead, dying people are sensitive to sound both as they die and for certain periods after their death. Thus he will hear the teachings which can help him. Tsereng Sonam, we are here to help you. Tsereng Sonam, listen to me carefully. Listen, Tsereng Sonam. Now is the time for you to pay close attention. Do not be afraid. You are dying, and the four great elements of your body are collapsing one into the other. It feels as if you are being crushed by mountains, tossed by waves, scorched and carried off by a strong wind. This is the bardo of dying. It is important now to recognize your own nature. Do not resist this. Do not be afraid. O son of noble family, the time of death has arrived. Now let your compassion be limitless as space. Let your mind be at peace. Rest in this, the vast, empty luminosity of mind itself. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes the collapse of the body's constituent elements. Earth collapses into water, water collapses into fire, fire collapses into air, and air dissolves into consciousness. Then there is an experience of piercing luminosity, pure white light, the clear radiance that arises from the direct experience of one's own basic nature. Now there is no darkness, no separation, no direction and no shape, only brilliant light. This boundless, sparkling radiance is mind, free from the shadows of birth and death, free from boundaries of any kind. Sering Sonam, listen. Now all-pervasive light engulfs you completely. All of space is dissolved into pure light. This radiance is the mind of all the Buddhas, all the awakened ones. To recognize this is all that is necessary. Teacher, what happens to him if he doesn't recognize his own nature? Well, there were definite indications that he did not recognize it. So it is as if he has fallen into a dreamless sleep. Can he still hear? No, but in 3 days' time, his consciousness will hear more clearly than ever before. All his senses, all his emotions will be vivid and intense. And although it will seem to him that he has entered some new reality, it is still just the reality of his own mind.
I just want to say something about that point because the question came up last week about, that's good right there. Yeah. The question came up about like, so these are our mind states, or this is all our mind. It is, but it's also important not to say it's just all in your mind, right? Because, so the body it is dying, but then our experiences of that are going to be unique for each of our minds. So that's the way that, I think I told you all that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, Catholics believed in Ireland there was this cave you could go into, and that was what they called purgatory. They felt that it was an external thing that you went and did, and then you came out and you went back to work. It wasn't even about dying. It was more about purification. So you went to this purgatory little cave, you sat in there for a week and then came out. Then I think, it evolved to where understanding that purgatory is a state of mind. But it's clear when we say it that way, we're not just saying, oh, it's all in your mind, right? Because the body has died. So just making sure that we understand that distinction. But so now what he just said here in this video, is, now he's going to enter the experience that he enters in the bardo will be very much dependent on his mind. So where are we at in there? Oh, so let's pause this here. You all can find this on YouTube, which is put in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, narrated by Leonard Cohen, and you'll find it. So that we can then, but there's some more of this as he goes through the bardo. Can you turn that one off for me? These lights really kill me. Thank you. So any questions about what you just saw before we? Yeah.
And if you are online and have a question, you can either raise your hand or get my attention. If you're on YouTube, just type it in the chat.
So does, he said that his mind, I thought I heard him say his mind wasn't in a good place, but in 3 days' time, it sounded like there was another opportunity for the monk to.
Yeah, I don't know what he was saying necessarily about 3 days, but he was saying there were signs that he hadn't recognized. He didn't say it was he didn't say he was not in a good place. He just said it doesn't look like he recognized the nature of his own mind. Meaning that when we talk about the child and mother clear light joining, so he'll be in the bardo and then take a new birth.
Okay.
So to completely recognize the nature of your mind and become enlightened there, that's the goal. It's also a really steep goal. If you have, I don't know if he's been practicing that.
Okay.
So that's what he was
Okay.
saying. There's certain signs in the body that he would be able to say, looks like he's done that. So they're going to move forward with the ceremonies to help him through the bardo. At the beginning also, I think the Leonard Cohen was saying there's 49 days in the bardo. That's the most. It doesn't mean everybody's 49 days in the bardo. Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
If he's in that state, the clear mind, Buddha nature, is that what you say?
Yeah.
Why not just stay there?
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I think everybody would if they had the choice, but it depends very much on all kinds of causes and conditions,
Your
right?
karma
Yeah,
would
right.
propel him.
Right. And so how familiar are you with that state, that you're able to stay in that state? Again, if you read in that book that I was talking about last week, they'll have a better description about this kind of child and clear light, child light and mother light. So the more familiar we are with that, this advice on dying, the more we'll be able to stay in that state, That's, yeah.
I was just thinking if you have that Buddha nature, then you can control all of that and pretty much do anything you want to do at that point.
Yeah, you'd be merged with that. You wouldn't have to take another life. Yeah.
Go ahead, Don, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay. So do Buddhist practitioners in our region in the United States practice the completion of going through the bardo states before anything is done with the body?
Well, things can be done with the body while the consciousness is in the bardo state. I mean, the ideal would be to leave the body for 3 days. So there's this 3-day period of time that a lot of high practitioners would still be kind of in that meditative state, and you wouldn't want to disturb the body. And one of the signs that somebody is in that state is there's not decay of the body, there's no smell. That's hard to do in this country. There's all kind of laws you're breaking if you do in this country. So sometimes you can postpone it for a little while. So when my mother died, she was in a nursing home, and hospice was involved. So they knew that I didn't want her touched. And it was very clear she was in the dying stages. And so the nurses were amazing, because hospice had told me, well, they're going to need to listen to her heart. I'm not going to interfere with that. Geshe had already kind of helped me get my head around that. My mother had a long illness. It was doubtful that she was in a meditative state. But what they did, and hospice helped kind of navigate this, was to leave her as long as possible. So she died at around 5 or 6 in the evening. The nurse called me because I had just left, and the nurse called me and said, I haven't touched her. I'm not going to touch her, which was so nice. And then Geshe told me certain things to do. So then I was able to go there and do those before. And they said, we'll leave the body here until about midnight. So that was also really nice that they did that.
So if you're not so fortunate to have even that kind of level of consideration, does it disrupt the transition into the a rebirth, or through the transition through bardo to to not let the body to prematurely terminate the body?
Yeah, I mean, when people ask Geshe this, he doesn't stress out too much about it. He's like, that's just the way it is. And so for example, in my mother's case, I mean, if you're able to do something like this, even if they wouldn't let her body just lay there for 6 hours, he said, bring a Buddha statue and place it on the top of her head, and say these prayers. And while she was dying, I had a cassette of some prayers that were being played in the room. And even if you can't do that, you can still, as this video shows, you can still guide the consciousness, because I thought I was going to really want to be in the room all the time. And Geshe-la said, you don't need to. And so I actually felt like when I was in the room, even though she was not conscious, I felt like I was disturbing her energy. I just felt it. So I would walk around, oh my goodness, for days, it seemed like, walk around the nursing home saying these prayers and then come in and kind of moisten her mouth and then walk again. And so Geshe-la is always counseling that now the consciousness can pick up on all of that energy, prayers, thoughts, like food. And it's instant, you don't have to be in the exact same room. So this should give people a lot of comfort who feel badly that they weren't in the room at the moment the person died, that their consciousness probably was much bigger than that room anyway. They could absorb what you're sending them. So I think even if we can't do that, then I remember, like when my dog died, so Geshe-la was still living in my house, and she had a death that I would want. She died under a tree with a monk praying in her ear. it sounds pretty good. And we knew she was dying and she wasn't in pain and she didn't need to be euthanized or anything like that. So then I just tried to leave her body. I put something over it, but it quickly decayed, and so I didn't need to leave it there for 3 days. I could just let's move the body. So there's no kind of one size fits all, and we don't want to torture ourselves with what we can't do. But there's certainly things we can still do. Also, Tibet's really cold. There's that helps.
Yeah, good point. Okay, thank you, Steve.
Sure.
There's one question from a student on YouTube. They ask, it is very difficult to accept this truth. Please help me. It's very difficult to part from great minds.
Difficult to part from great minds, like leaving teachers?
I'm not sure.
Maybe they'll
The first
answer
part
that.
of the question, it is very difficult to accept this truth. So I don't know if it's the truth of, what we saw in the video. Please help me. And if you want to clarify, you can put that in the chat.
So was the
Student on YouTube.
Was the next part of the question, though, is it hard to leave great minds, or that's a different question?
Statement. It's a statement.
Okay.
It is very difficult to part from great minds.
Okay.
And
So yeah, if you can add what you mean by it's difficult to part from great minds, like is it difficult to leave, more practiced teachers, or is it's just difficult to leave people who you love? And so one thing it's a good opportunity to think about this now. It depends on what your thoughts are about.
they're saying teachers.
Teachers, okay. Well then, do you when I've asked monks, I remember in the beginning, and I was kind of just becoming aware of how amazing Dharma teachings were, and I would tell different monks, aren't you afraid you won't meet the teachings in the future? And they never were worried about that, because they have this understanding of dependent arising, that it's not just some fluke that we found the teachings now. And so as long as we've created enough causes to meet it again in the future, there's no need to really worry. I mean, it's no accident that we're all meeting each other. And so we're just spiraling around the same stuff over and over again. We will meet each other again. And if you, it is kind of like an inhale, exhale. So I'm not trying to take away from the reality of the fact that we're impermanent and we're moving and we're shifting. But these teachers, depending on your belief, they've made a commitment. You've made a commitment that's not just lost in this life. So I remember once when I was overwhelmed with a kind of impermanence, because my mother's decline, which was slow motion, and then I would go to Washington, D.C. and help my uncle, who was 94, and his house was kind of falling apart, and I was seeing all these childhood memories and things just covered in dust and decay. I was just like overwhelmed with impermanence. And I was asking him, like, what's the antidote for being so overwhelmed with impermanence like this? And he said, oh, that's easy, to think of what's arising. So I was just overwhelmed with the kind of the exhale, that end of impermanence, which is very real. But a way to balance that is to think of what then arises. It's not, because of impermanence, we can become enlightened. Because of impermanence, we can learn something from teachers and meet them again. This is a very precious opportunity, but we're building the relationships to meet each other and teachers and teachings again. So can you see if that helps? And then there's also, I think, a chat thing. Okay. Yeah, let me know if that helps. Yeah, because we can get overwhelmed with the loss. And so, I try to do that a lot. Like when I'd go into the nursing home and see all these people, most of them had dementia, were really suffering and just kind of like in a cocoon in their room or in their wheelchair. I remember then trying to switch it from just looking at the demise to thinking they're in some kind of cocoon state, that something was going to arise. And what is that? So then at that moment, I could wish something positive for them. Like if somebody, an alien being landed on Earth and saw a woman in labor, they would be like, oh my God, but we know what's coming. So we're just like, oh, this is great, unless you're in labor. And so similarly, if we can see the dying process as that possible, as that ripe with something, we don't know, we can't see around the corner. So, but we can contribute in our own way to the wishes for that to be something better. I think it'll be really interesting when is that teacher coming and talking about dependent arising?
Don Handrick will be here September 12th through the 17th, and the dependent arising is a weekend workshop.
Okay.
So it'll be that Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon after the typical Dharma connections talk in the morning.
Can somebody come just for the Friday if they weren't here for the weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can come anytime.
So I would really encourage y'all to do that. I think that would get to the question about, separating from teachers and from anybody, and also just help with this whole process. All right.
And the student on YouTube did say, beautiful answer. Thanks a lot,
Okay,
Steve.
good.
Thanks
Good.
a lot.
Good. Yeah, it's a really important question. Thank you for asking it, because I know when we go through the death dissolution stages, sometimes when I talk about like, okay, now you don't remember your names of your families and friends, people have asked me that feels sad. In that moment, hopefully it won't feel sad. It feels sad to us now thinking about it. But I remember once having this realization that like, oh, I've left lives countless times, right? In the middle of something. It wasn't just like, okay, I'm done now, let's go. I was in the middle of something, right? And so that's that. If I really get that, like on a cellular level, that I've left things millions of times like that, it just somehow kind of helped me.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
Hein, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much. If you don't understand my question, Linda may help me because she probably understands me better.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was watching the video, and of course, it's so sad to watch that video, but I don't quite understand. I'm from Vietnam, and my culture is different.
Right.
Yes. So I saw that when they turned the body of that gentleman, why did they do that? And then
Okay.
I think the monk, he was saying that don't cry, just yes. And would you please explain why?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So there's two questions. One is, why did the monk tell the family who was crying to be quiet? And so he did say to them, that's only confusing the man who's dying. This man has to kind of release, and if he holds on, it's going to make his Bardo experience, his death process, much harder. So it's kind of like the train is pulling out of the station, and if you're holding on to the platform, it's going to be very excruciating. So the people on the side who are saying goodbye to the train, if they're saying goodbye with joy and encouragement, that's going to be a lot better than if they're crying and the man is holding on to the platform. So the man in the train is a big challenge to let go. And so he can use all the help he can get, which is why the monk was there in the first place. And the family members on the side of the train can just at minimum be quiet. At maximum, they can also, say some prayers and join in with trying to send him the best energy possible. It's a tall order. So at minimum, then take all the crying elsewhere. You're going to have to do something for your own grief, but also try to at least balance that, especially positive or more neutral. And then the first part of the question, did the monk move the man to his right side? So I don't know if you saw that statue he was holding of the Buddha laying on his side. That's the Buddha dying, in the posture of dying on the right side. And it's felt that this helps with the winds and the channels that are, changing through the death process. To move any person onto their right side will help with that whole death dissolution process. So I can't say that I completely understand that. It's just that's kind of the winds and the channels and all of that. Okay, does that help? Okay. Okay, great. I'm glad it was helpful. So our own grief is real. And it's not to be ignored. We need to look at ways that we can kind of soften around things. We'll have so many chances to do this. And, asking ourselves, like, who am I in this moment? We have strong identification with some things, so that it's very hard in this culture, even when we retire, because our soul identity is wrapped up around whatever it is that we just spend all that time doing, and everybody called us by that title, and so on and so forth. They're on every form, it's occupation. So there's a strong identification with that. There's also a strong identification with all kinds of other things. It's not bad, it's just, can we practice like asking ourselves, who is that? Who is that part of me that does this? So that we can not feel that it's so fixed. So we have more flexibility. That's what we're trying for, is more flexibility. Then we will be able to enter into this death dissolution state more readily, more powerfully, more joyfully. That's the point, is to know we're just in the middle of this journey. Quickly running out of our own time here in the class. So I'm going to read through the death dissolution states. What I put on the board here, I don't know if y'all can see this on YouTube. This is just the inner visions. And so if you even just memorized those, then you could do those throughout the day. One of the things His Holiness does as a quick little throughout the day, he says he meditates on the death dissolution states many times throughout the day, and just going through the inner visions, the inner signs, the mirage, the smoke, the fireflies, the flame of a lamp, then the vivid white sky, red, orange, the black sky, and then the fainting, and then clear light. And then when we take birth, it's the reverse. So just memorizing those and going through those throughout the day. And then you can also memorize the entire death dissolution state and do it as you're falling asleep, or even just, once a week, practicing with that on a Sunday or something. All right. So let's refresh our motivation, our intention, check our posture. And I'm going to say this in first person so that you can almost hear it yourself as saying it for you. That's my hope. Just take several deep breaths. Settle yourself. And imagine feeling ready and safe and confident in this journey. You have no fear, you feel ready. You feel prepared, protected, in good hands. You know that you've gone through this death process countless times, and that you've spent this time preparing, purifying, creating positive mind states to the best of your ability. So you feel comfortable with the next parts of this journey. So the first stage you've entered, you know that my body becomes thin and weak. My vision becomes, my arms and legs feel like they're falling or sinking. I can no longer blink my eyes. My natural glow is gone. And mirage appears. Mirage is here, and I know that the inner vision of smoke is coming. So now I enter the second stage. I can no longer feel the difference between pain, pleasure, and neutrality. I can no longer remember the difference between pain, pleasure, and neutrality. My mouth and nose dry and pucker. I can no longer hear external sounds. I can no longer hear internal sounds. And then smoke appears. And I tell myself, mirage is gone, smoke is here, and fireflies are coming. And now I enter the third stage. I can no longer recognize my friends and family or people around me. I can no longer remember the names of the people in my life. Then warmth withdraws. My inhale is short. My exhale is long and jagged. I can no longer smell. And fireflies appear. Smoke is gone. Fireflies appear. Candle flame is coming. Now we enter the fourth stage. I can no longer move my body. I can no longer recall the mundane details of this life. I can no longer inhale. My tongue is thick and dark and unable to taste. I can no longer feel my body. I no longer have any conceptual thoughts at all. There's a vision of a flame, a flickering flame. And now the final four appearances arise. So white sky-like vision. There's no movement, just as open and vast as the sky, but very white. Like when there's snow on the ground and a white sky at full moon. That dissolves and there's like a red copper sky vision. And that dissolves and there's like a dark black sky. And then a fainting of consciousness, brief fainting. And now a clear light arises, as clear as an autumn blue dawn, no clouds, no dust, just vast, perfect, clear sky. Undisturbed, untroubled, pure nature of mind. And slowly open your eyes. How was that for people? It felt like we were all flying. Felt very powerful for me. Did it feel good? Anybody have any not so good experiences with that, or questions that came up? I see a heart. Yeah, remember, it's meant to make you feel more powerful. All of this is. So I'm happy for the questions that when you're not feeling that, so that we can work to put in some ways to make it better. And becoming familiar with that, it felt very powerful to me, of like, oh, this child mind of mine, this child light is trying to get as familiar as possible with that home, right? So that when I am there, that's the resting place, Yeah. Yeah.
It's difficult for me to imagine clear. Is it just space? You don't. It's not really white light. It's just clear. And so I try to imagine being in the ocean, and I can just see everything.
Yeah.
Not see, but feel everything around me. But it's still hard to grasp
Yeah.
the concept of clear.
One of the ways it's written about is like as a dawn, not dawn. Well, I think early morning of an autumn day, and Geshe-la said this to me before. He said, in the summer there's more particles in the air, so it's just completely clear, perfect blue sky. So that's why the only part of flying that I like is when I'm up high enough to kind of get that feeling that there's just blue everywhere you look. Just clear blue. And then you kind of feel it, right? It's not just something you're seeing. You ever feel like joined with that sky, what that would feel like? Try to make it even more like a somatic experience. So sometimes I would almost spontaneously, when I meditate, sometimes feel that I was sitting in the sky. So imagine that nothing can stay up there, right? I mean, you couldn't put like this desk up in the sky. It's just, but it's something. It's just this wide open, endless blue. Yeah, it's hard, I think, with our mind to visualize and imagine that. But I think sometimes just walking through these death dissolution, or I used to even just before I knew these, just meditate that, okay, get in a comfort, really get into a meditative state of mind, and then imagine the chair is gone. Now the building's gone. Now the earth is gone. Now my body's gone. Now my memory of my name is gone. There's still something. It would just kind of feel like it would just get huge, So we're trying to kind of like take all these things back that we are so identified with, and then what? Then what? Kind of helps. So, you all have created an enormous amount of merit, believe it or not, contemplating this challenging topic. So remember, karma just means action. So the actions we take through our body, speech, and mind. You all have, through this class has created quite a lot of karma that way. So now is the chance to dedicate all of this merit that you've earned towards the highest goal that you have. Because undedicated merit can end up making you like a very wealthy person, but not very stable or not pointed in the right direction, just kind of erratic. So take a minute to think about how you want to dedicate the merit that you've created. Think about how this will not be wasted, that you can rejoice in your own efforts to come here and to share, to think about this topic. And then we're going to use Shanti Deva's prayer again, like a booster shot for our own positive dedication. So another way to also make sure that the way that you're dedicating is not lost is you can think of all the incredible, wise, holy beings around before, currently, and all of their merit, and that we are joining our merit with theirs, like grains of rice into a huge river of rice, right? Or grains of whatever into that river. So it's joined with theirs to create fruit in the highest way possible. And that's what we're doing when we read Shanti Deva's prayer. How many times has this been read? How long ago was this written? All the beings who are using this prayer in the same exact way, we're joining that river. We will not be separated. The fact that we found it in this degenerate time, this speaks volumes. Speaks volumes. There's so many things that for us Americans to choose from, and yet you found this, you joined this. Geshe came all the way from India after spending his whole lifetime studying this. This is not just a fluke. Okay.
If you're using the Gold Prayer Book, it's on page 32. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with oil be restored on finding. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to be here with you all and to get to see you all in person and on the screen and get questions from YouTube. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much,
right.
Steve.
All right.
It was
Thank you,
great.
Steve.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Okay. See you all.
Great job.
Thanks everyone online, on YouTube, on Zoom. Thanks everyone here in person in the Kadampa. Thank you, Chris, for running AV.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Keep your eye out on the calendar for lots of other things happening.